Evening, everyone, and welcome to a special committee of the whole this evening. Uh, My name is Councillor Peter McKenna, and I'm your chair for this evening and for the rest of April. Welcome to all my colleagues and staff at Smith Falls Town and all our viewers out there. So we have any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, it's approved. Is there any monetary interest to disclose as a result of the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move right along. We're very pleased to have Ethan Boss with us tonight to talk about organ donation and a Green Shirt Day. I don't see Mr. Boss. There he is. Welcome, Ethan. I look forward. We have received your slide deck. Are you wanting us to put that up and you'll walk us through it? Oh, we just can't hear you there, Ethan. No, we're not getting any audio, Ethan. We see you very clearly with your green shirt on.
Nope. Maybe his microphone's not. Dave does have his slide deck ready to go up, so maybe Dave can pull that up while we get Ethan
situated. Ethan, are you ready to go? Can we hear you? No. I did go through this slide deck, but I'm happy. Hello.
Hi.
There you are. Welcome back, Ethan Boss. It's good to have you.
Okay, thank you.
Over to you. And it's Smith Falls is delighted to have you joining us.
Okay. Oh, do you guys want me to share screen or what do you want?
No, the screen is all shared. All you'll do when you're ready, we're at the first slide.
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready to change it, just let Dave know and he'll move it forward. And if you could keep it to about 10 or 12 minutes, that would be great.
Oh yeah, I can do that. Okay. So as you've heard, I am here to help bring awareness to Green Shirt Day. It is not as much as of organization as it is an awareness as in itself. It is to bring awareness to the need of organ and tissue donation. So it first started with the one player there, Logan Blay. He started the whole effect. From 3 years to date, there was the big tragedy, the Humboldt Broncos hockey team crash, and one of the players' name was Logan Blay. He died on April 7th, and his organs were donated, and he saved 6 lives.
Ethan, do you want us to move the slide ahead?
Yeah.
Which one are you looking at now?
I am on the 3rd slide.
Okay.
Sorry.
Dave, no, that's okay. Dave will move us ahead 3 slides. 1.
No, the next slide.
All right, good.
That's it. So 16 people died and 13 people were injured. One of the players who died, name was Logan Blay. This tragedy affected people around the world, but there was goodness that came to light from this tragic event. Next slide. The Boulay family let the world know that their son Logan signed his card, and they honored his wishes and his organs were donated. 2 things happened. 6 people who were waiting for an organ were saved. Next slide. Secondly, there were over 100,000 people that signed their organ donor card after Logan's parents put out to the public about what they had done in 1 year. This started the Logan Blay effect. And I've gotten information that in the last 3 years, there's been well over 300,000 people that have signed their card because of this. Logan was inspired by his mentor, Sluggo, who was an organ donor. They both signed their card, and because of this, they helped save 12 lives. Next slide. On April 7th, 2018, 6 lives were saved. Unfortunately, 200 people die every year waiting for an organ transplant. Next slide. There are over 4,500 people who are waiting for an organ donation in Canada. There are over 37.59 million people that live in Canada. That means that 1 out of every 8,353 Canadians are waiting for an organ. Next slide. 90% of Canadians say that they support organ donation, yet only 23% have registered. One organ donor can save up to 8 lives. A tissue donor can improve the lives of up to 75 patients. Age doesn't matter. Canada's oldest organ donor was over 90 years old. Next slide. It is so easy that it only takes a minute to sign up and possibly help save a life. Talk with your family and loved ones about your decision to become a registered organ donor. Next slide. One of the most important things that Logan's donation did was that it brought awareness to the need of organ donation in Canada. Due to Logan Blay effect, as I said, over 300 people have signed their donor card in the last 2 years. Next slide. Let's make April 7th from now on Green Shirt Day in Canada. Next slide. As a little thing was live life. Next. Again. And then live life, pass it on. And that's the end of my slideshow.
Thank you very much, Ethan. What an important message you've brought to the people of Smiths Falls. I'll turn it over to my colleagues to see if either counselors or student counselors would like to have a question. And I see Counselor Brennan has his hand up, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Ethan. That very compelling. I'm going to say the one thing that I've taken away from this is age doesn't matter in terms of organ donation, because I've always thought that I would support that, but I'm too old.
No,
Apparently not. So
No.
that's a really good message to get out there. So thanks for coming, and good for you.
thank you.
Counselor Allen?
Yes, thank you, Ethan. I agree with my colleague. That was a great takeaway for me as well. But I wonder if you could share with people watching this evening too, how they go about getting the card that you had in your display.
So that card was actually just a photo I found on Google, but there are different websites you can go to. I'm pretty sure you can go to the Canadian Transplant Association. I'm pretty sure you can do it there. Yeah, and you can also do it on greenshirtday.ca.
Oh, well, thank you for bringing this here. And I certainly am in favor of a Green Shirt Day. Very worthy cause. Thanks.
And Counselor Alford had her hand up.
I did. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One other thing that occurred to me when you were doing it, I carry my organ donor card with my license, but I probably should register that too from what you said, Logan. So that's good information for me too. I really do appreciate that a young person like you took this upon yourself to come and make us aware, and hopefully the people listening aware. So I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mayor Panko?
Okay, if there's no further comments, I've got a proclamation I'll read in a moment, but Ethan, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for helping raise awareness. And I know I signed my organ donor card decades ago, and I know I've registered online in the last number of years as well. So I think it's important that one, people register, and two, make sure that their family's aware of their wishes. And of course, we all hope to have a long and healthy life, but I think there's nothing more selfless we could do than make sure that part of us lives on and helping save others the moment we are no longer with this earth. Or anyway, so
just before you read the
sure.
proclamation, Mr. Mayor. Now, Ethan, I know you're running off to do another one of these with the municipality of North Grenville. Do you have time, or are you going to stay with us for a few more minutes while the mayor reads this? Or do you
Yeah,
need to-
I got time.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Mayor Panko.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Proclamation for Green Shirt Day. Whereas on April 7th, 2018, a young Canadian named Logan Boulay became an organ donor in the aftermath of the tragic Humboldt Bronco bus crash. Logan saved the lives of 6 others, and his story inspired hundreds of thousands of people around the world to register as an organ and tissue donor. And whereas there are more than 4,000 people that are on the waiting list for transplant operations, and whereas one organ and tissue donor can save up to 8 lives and improve the life and health of up to 75 other people, whereas the Canadian Transplant Association and the family of Logan Boulay will carry on Logan's legacy by recognizing April 7th as Green Shirt Day, raising awareness of the need for registered organ and tissue donors so that access to life-saving and life-transforming transplants can be improved. Now, therefore, I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smiths Falls, do hereby proclaim April 7th as Green Shirt Day every year to inspire organ donor registration in the Town of Smiths Falls. And of course, we encourage everyone who has not done so to do so in the near future. Ethan, thank you very much for being with us today. We will carry on your passion, and I'm confident that the work you are taking and the effort you're making here will absolutely make a difference.
Good, thank you.
Thanks so much, Ethan. And I know the mayor will be following up during the council meeting with another discussion on organ donation, and it's important. So, okay. And Ethan, you're welcome to stay and watch, but I know you've got other things to do.
Yeah,
Okay, bye-bye.
but
So we don't have any minutes to adopt. CAO Morris, I don't believe there's any reports. I didn't take roll call for staff, but I don't know if you want to do that for me right now, just for the record.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are correct. There are no verbal reports this evening from staff, given that this is a special committee of the whole meeting. So with us this evening, we have Jennifer Miller, Carrie Costello, Troy Dunlop, Carl Grenke, and our Deputy Clerk, Nadine Bennett.
Okay, so we'll move right along to item number 6, correspondence items. And we have a letter from Tony Fleming, our Integrity Commissioner. And each year, the Integrity Commissioner is obliged to report to Council on his previous 12 months' work. And Mr. Fleming has done that. It's interesting to note, and for the public, please take the time to go to the town website and read the full report. If I guess I'll just speak in a summary. The good news is that Council is using the Integrity Commissioner when they have questions. At least a couple of times during the year, if Council had a question, they would contact the Integrity Commissioner, ask their question, get some good answers before they got into any concern. So they did use it on a couple of occasions, which is very appropriate. We encourage that. And then on the other hand, the Integrity Commissioner received no complaints over the last 12 months on behalf of this council, which we're always pleased with. We do our very best to operate within all of the rules. And if it happens inadvertently, we quickly reconcile that. So the Integrity Commissioner has completed his obligation for the previous 12 months. I don't know if my colleagues have any questions or comments regarding the letter. Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one, and perhaps it's one that Clerk Costello could just circle back to Tony and get some clarity on. When he reports that he has only received 2 requests for advice from members of council, can we just get clarity on whether or not those are requests in writing or if they include verbal requests? Because I know I myself have probably called Tony more than twice in the last year, but those requests were never made in writing. So I just want to make sure that there's an understanding and clarity around what that actually constitutes.
So Deputy Clerk Bennett, will you follow up on that and get back to council with the answer to that?
I'll follow up with Tony tomorrow and advise council accordingly.
Director Costello, thank you. Any other comments or questions on the Integrity Commissioner's report? Okay. We're moving right along. Thank you. In camera items. At this point, we are going to go in camera on a subject of solicitor-client privilege. And so I would entertain a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Dwyer. All in favor? And thank you. It's carried. For the public, please bear with us. We hope we won't be too long, but we'll take a few minutes to get this set up for us. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and welcome back to the open session. Council provided direction and listened on a matter of client lawyer solicitor advice. So thank you for that. We're moving right along to priority items number 8.1, the award of the contract Cornelia Street West. And I think Director Dunlop is going to lead the charge on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report before committee for Cornelia Street, the objective is to award to the lowest bidder this evening. The project on Cornelia Street involves a shave and pave over approximately 100 or 520 meters from the William Street intersection to the Elmsley Street intersection. We will also be doing the asphalts within those traffic signals at the same time as well. Overall, we are going to be using performance graded asphalts on the job to a depth of approximately 140 millimeters, which is about 5 inches in depth. Of interest is the road was last paved 30 years ago in 1991. The underground is all in great shape. We issued tenders for this project on February the 11th, and we had a closing early on in the year on March 4th. We received 5 bids. You'll see those results in tonight's report. The low bid from Ottawa D Squared came in at $352,410 plus HST, very favorable pricing on the job. The references for D Squared came in very good. We spoke with several project managers at the City of Ottawa, including project managers at the firm BGIS. Total budget forecast for the project does fall within the approved funding resources. The overall budget, I should point out, was $480,000. Right now, we're recommending, or we're forecasting an estimated surplus of around $64,000. So tonight, we're recommending that the bid to Ottawa D Squared be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Dunlop. Questions or comments? Looks like we're getting a lot of thumbs up. And so over 30 years, if we get another 30 years, that's about $10,000 a year or a little over that. So that's, for a road that takes that beating, that's pretty good investment. So it looks like we're set to go, and this will come up at the council meeting immediately following our meeting of the Committee of the Whole. Thank you, Director Dunlop. Without going too far, we're moving on to 8.2, the Abbott and Lombard intersection report. Back to you, Mr. Dunlop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Similar to the Cornelia Street project, we got out very early this year with a Lombard Street intersection upgrade that includes a shave and pave of Lombard Street from Ferrera Drive to a distance about 290 meters to the Abbott Street intersection. Project also involves the construction of a new concrete sidewalk on Lombard Street on the south side that would be fully accessible, again, from Abbott Street to Ferrera Drive. Significant upgrades planned at the traffic signals, most notable being the addition of a southbound right turn lane on Abbott Street to improve flow, and in particular when the bridge closes during the bridge swings in the summer. Traffic signals will be fully upgraded to meet accessibility standards. So you're going to see countdown timers, tactile markings at the depressions, also modernization with the controller and LED lighting. Similar to Cornelia Street, we will be applying performance graded asphalts in this area. The thicknesses will be a little thinner. We're doing partial removals, so we're looking at about 90 millimeters, so just shy of 4 inches being placed. Of interest, this road was paved 34 years ago, so it's got a little more age than Cornelia Street. Tenders closed were released and closed at the same time as Cornelia Street. And we ended up with 4 bids. You'll see those results included in this evening's report. The low bid from Ottawa D Squared was $691,783 plus HST. I should identify that they do have TJ Clark as a subcontractor on this project, as there's a significant amount of electrical work being performed. Similar references came out well with this company. Right now, we are estimating a surplus on the overall project at $46,482. And again, we're recommending that the contract be awarded to Ottawa D Squared for this project as well. Thank you.
So we have some hands up on this one. So we'll go with Mayor Panko, please.
Thanks, Troy. This is really encouraging. It's something I think we've been waiting for a while, and it's great to see both these projects come in with bids under budget. I guess in excess of $100,000 of savings. Timelines, understanding, I guess, a navigation season opening later in May, anticipated, I guess. The swing bridge starting operations at that time. When do we expect to start this project, and when do we expect to be able to have it wrapped up?
Great questions through the chair. One of the key components that will impact the delivery of this project is a 12-week timeline on the ordering of all the traffic signal components. We are seeing that the supply chains for that type of equipment are a little strained during the pandemic. In order to achieve the best possible pricing for this intersection and of course attract as much interest, we did include the September 1st completion date for this project. It is our intention to work with Ottawa D Squared. We're not sure if we're looking at 2 mobilizations on this job, whether they do the shave and pave and work on Lombard in advance and come back and do the signals after. We're exploring that. I do envision that when the signals are done, and in particular when they're building that southbound right-hand turn lane on Abbott Street, that we are going to have to close that leg for a short period. Again, albeit with the long window that we've afforded for this project, I do want to emphasize that we are only looking at about 8 weeks work. So we're going to work with Ottawa D Squared to find a timeline that works. And again, if they're the successful contractor on Cornelia, we've got some options to do some joint coordination so that these projects aren't competing with one another in terms of traffic management in town.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chair. So I guess assuming as this is part of the connecting link, I assume traffic flows will have to continue along that section of Lombard. There'll be no full detours, I assume.
Great question. Through the chair, we most certainly will have to maintain traffic flow on this section of Lombard. We do have 3 lanes to move traffic around, and if you recall, when we did that major traffic work with Carson's Construction back in 2016, we were able to move the traffic and manage those flows while doing that shave and pave activity. So I think the most challenging locations to deal with will be when we're doing the resurfacing right in the center of the Lombard Abbott intersection, and we will certainly be looking at when the best window is to do that. But again, we do have to maintain movement on the connecting link throughout this project.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Brennan, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask about the timelines too, but I just want to say that this is a long-awaited project, and what I'm really happy about is the sidewalk, because that does get a lot of pedestrian use, given the commercial that is with the grocery store and whatnot out that way. So very welcome news, and there may be a little pain with the construction, but at the end of the day, it's going to be much better. So, and under budget again. Thank you, Troy. And there's more interest, which is interesting that there seems to be with these 2 that you've announced tonight. There's lots of interest on it, and we're able to come under budget. So people are looking at Smith Falls, I guess.
Any other questions? I just had one. Is there an opportunity, or will there be any way to green up that sidewalk, a shrub or a tree, or is that just too busy an area to think about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great question. I know when the plaza was developed, a lot of the right-of-ways were looked at around the Lombard Abbott intersection, and aside from the acquisition of that key parcel on the corner, there's very little boulevard that the town actually owns. So I know our planning department did a great job working with the developer to get some greenery on the retail site where KFC is, but certainly the opportunities are quite limited on all the other frontages.
Thank you, Director Dunlop. So it looks like a thumbs up all around for that one. Then that again will be coming up at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to 8.3, 2021-2022 City Council Report. Director Dunlop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great question. I know when the plaza was developed, a lot of the right-of-ways were looked at around the Lombard Abbott intersection, and aside from the acquisition of that key parcel on the corner, there's very little boulevard that the town actually owns. So I know our planning department did a great job working with the developer to get some greenery on the retail site where KFC is, but certainly the opportunities are quite limited on all the other frontages. Thank you, Director Dunlop. So it looks like a thumbs up all around for that one. Then that again will be coming up at our next meeting. Thank you. Moving to
Ms. Miller is going to talk about the Parks Canada lease agreement report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, with Parks Canada's decision to repurpose Victoria Park, we were advised at the end of 2020 that the lease between Parks and the town would be revised. So the revised lease was recently received and reviewed by legal counsel and is being presented to council tonight. The section of Victoria Park where our RV park was located has been removed from the town's lease. The lease was also broken into different segments, which will make it easier to update in the future. For example, this will be helpful as we negotiate redevelopment of the old water treatment plant and the potential requirement for land surrounding it by the proponent. So it's therefore staff's recommendation this evening that council authorize the clerk and the mayor to sign the updated lease agreements with Parks Canada for a portion of Victoria Park, the land near the water tower and Stone Arch Dam, and 2 water lot licenses.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Councillor Dwyer, then Councillor McGuire, then Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand why we would execute a license for Victoria Park where the playground is. I also understand and appreciate why we would execute a license for the parking lot under the water tower, which is primarily used for parking by Parks Canada staff. I don't understand why we are executing a license for parcel A, which is the island. I get that we have an abutment for our bridge there, but that's more or less the only benefit. I guess the swans also nest there, but I'm sure we could find them another home. I'm also not sure I understand why we are executing a leasing arrangement for the 2 water lots, and why the mooring management of the upper basin isn't just left to Parks Canada. I'm of the opinion that if you're going through the lock anyways and you have to pay your lockage fee, why wouldn't you just pay your mooring fee through them as well, rather than having us hire seasonal staff to manage that? Because I assume that we're probably collecting mooring fees off that. Is that correct, Ms. Miller?
Through the chair, if I may. So I think there were 2 questions there, Councillor Dwyer. So the first one was about Duck Island. I would also add that we use that for our annual powwow, which is a good reconciliation project that we do with our local high school. So there is a good amount of park use that happens seasonally there. Your second question was around Victoria Park and mooring fees. And I would just speak to the fact that we have an RFP that just closed and will come to council next week about providing visitor services out of Victoria Park to ensure that we get boaters off their boats and up to Beckwith Street. So that report will be coming next week.
Okay. I can appreciate the fact that, you know, we have the RFP closing for management of visitor services, and I think that's great. I don't necessarily see the connection to the mooring. And quite frankly, I'm of the opinion that, you know, that's an arrangement that we used to have with the chamber. The chamber managed that on our behalf in conjunction with the campground, and it made sense to have all those services twinned together operating out of that hub. But without the campground, which was a vital piece of that, I just don't see there being a great deal of value to the municipality to pay the mooring fees there, or rental for the mooring, when it's something that could just as easily be operated by Parks Canada directly. And I appreciate that the powwow uses Turtle Island. I think there's great value in having the annual powwow as a means of reconciliation. But I think considering it's one event a year over the span of 2 days, 2.5 days, I think there's probably other opportunities for us to move that use elsewhere, perhaps to Victoria Park, or maybe look at doing it in conjunction with Parks Canada, and they get on board with this and just allow us to use the lands. I mean, it's a 3-day event. So I'm not in favor of executing a lease for the water lots or for parcel A, but I understand the reason that we would do so for parcels D and B highlighted on the map. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dwyer. Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Councillor Dwyer. That's the same thing I was putting my hand up for. I don't understand parcel D personally because we're plowing that lot all winter and maintaining it and taking the liability of having it, but Parks Canada staff are parking there Monday to Friday. So what's the advantage of us keeping that one in our lease agreement?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So the advantage of that parking area really is twofold. One is it's for our downtown businesses. It can be overflow if downtown is busy, but also it supports all of our summer activities at Confederation Park. So there's Movies Under the Stars, there's the music nights that were held last summer, there's the Rise Yoga Festival. And so having an ability for our visitors to Smiths Falls and our local residents to park there for events and festivals is very convenient, and really for the lease price of all of these, it's quite negligible.
So I'm wondering, is it our expectation that Parks would close this lot if it were not leased to the town, or would it continue to be available for public use?
So through the chair, that conversation hasn't been held. We've had longstanding lease agreements with Parks Canada on these properties. And so I did not anticipate that we would not continue these agreements.
Okay, thank you. So my take is that 100% don't agree with Duck Island. I think it's might as well have them cutting the grass and spending the money to maintain that. And as for the Victoria Park chunk, I think that'd be a really great location for a potential farmers market in the future. But I think it's, and with the water lots, I agree with Councillor Dwyer's concerns, but I think it's worth giving it a shot for a year. We've got the RFP coming back. Let's see if it breaks even, or if it makes money, or if it provides value to tourists, and then take another look at it this time next year. I would like to take this opportunity though and say, I think it's time that we start taking a serious look at Victoria Park and come to the table on it, because we've lost half of it now. And when I look at this aerial shot, the map's amazing. It's the best version of this that I've seen in the last couple of years. But we've got fuel tanks that aren't screened. We've got a condemned playground. We've got a dusty parking lot. We've got an airplane with no interpretive signage and a waiting pool with no water. So I think I think we need to come to the table if we're going to lease this land and really invest in it in the next couple of years and bring it back to UNESCO level of performance. So in summary, I don't support parcel A and I don't support parcel D.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, so I agree with what Chris just said about Victoria. I mean, I'm part of the Evergreen Avenue Committee, and it needs work for sure. And yeah, there's a waiting pool that's not serviceable and that sort of thing. I don't have any problem with us continuing the relationship for the cost of leasing. It's minimal, and it gives us opportunity to talk about what we could use with those particular properties. What I'm very disappointed with is the fact that we've lost part of Victoria Park, at least for this year. Camping is at a premium. Everything's booked for the summer, and we've lost a great opportunity to host people at that place where they don't want anybody. And the businesses of downtown are going to suffer. There's a restaurant closing across the street, and you know, for the sake of a year or two, while they figure out what they're going to do with their land, I think it's a big pity that that's going to sit there and be overgrown this year when it's such a demand. The services are there, the building's there, and it's too bad. It's too bad for sure. But I'll support this recommendation from staff.
Thank you. Councillor Alford.
Yeah, I'll support staff's recommendation, and just a couple of comments with regard to parcel D. That I think increasingly will be important to the downtown business. It was certainly used by the merchants during construction. And there's talk and plans that that beautiful stairway beside there could lead from that parking lot and up into the businesses on Beckwith Street. So no, I think we should keep parcel D, and I will support the rest of what staff has recommended.
Mayor Panko?
Yeah, I'll support the staff recommendation as well. And I hear the concerns of members of council and the practicality of utilizing some of this space and the need obviously for some attention to Victoria Park. And I know we've committed to improvements in all neighborhood parks before the end of this term. So I think obviously that area of Victoria Park is probably predominant focus we need to have on that going into next year. So I share some of the concerns, but I think overall we give this greater autonomy for the use of those properties, and for the modest costs, we want to retain what we can retain.
Thank you. Councillor Allen had her hand up.
So I will support staff recommendation as well. And I just like Councillor Alford, I think the parking lot will be critical to our downtown, especially if we can get that staircase. I mean, the reason we built the staircase where it is right now is so that we would be using that very easy entrance into the park for things like music in the park or our yoga festival and so many other things. The other thing is Victoria Park, when I was a child, and I know I'm old, but when I was a child, Victoria Park was such an amazing place to be with families. The little spring that went down there, there were no weeds in that little bed, and we used to wade in there and play there. The swimming pool, the little wading pool, was used very well. And when I go by there, I must say it just makes me sad that that wading pool isn't fixed and used. And I realize it's a fight with the health unit in terms of having to empty it and fill it again. But if we're not going to use it, then something else should go there. And I agree with Councillor Brennan. That's an important, the Evergreen Avenue walk is important, and that park could be a beautiful park again. So I hope we do spend money and put it into the park. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. I'll make a couple of comments, and I'm going to go to Councillor Dwyer and then Alfred. I'm supporting staff recommendation as well. I think having a formal agreement with Parks Canada over any of the land we're using or sharing, no matter how small, is better than not having an agreement. It really covers off the things that could or might happen. It protects, and it's a good risk management tool at our disposal, which I think is invaluable. And I really hope the Parks Master Plan will address some of the concerns that my colleagues have raised regarding the conditions of the parks. And I would never say we've lost a park. It's still there. And I saw people walking their dogs through there today. It will be improved upon. It's not there for RVs, but it's there for the public, and people are using it. So we haven't lost it. It's public land that we're all going to continue to enjoy. And I look forward to it being improved upon. So those are my thoughts. Then I'll go back to Councillor Dwyer and then Councillor Alford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer, can you clarify what the term of the lease is? Typically, these leases are 40-year leases. So if we agree to this, we're kind of locked into a 40-year term, probably with some cancellation fee and kind of renewal provisions. The only timeline I see in the draft agreement that you circulated is a reference to the fact that the fees are going to be renewed every 5 years, or subject to discussion and renewal every 5 years. Is this to be interpreted as a 5-year lease?
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Dwyer, we have been informed that it is there is no kind of end date on it, so I am interpreting it as that 5-year renewal process. One of the things that is a benefit of the way they've done these new leases is they're done in chunks, and so if there are pieces now that we want to change, we can just pull out one lease and amend it versus having to open up everything like we've done over the last few months. So I think this process simplifies things for us.
Thank you. So just a follow-up point to clarify that last point you just made. So am I to understand that each block as identified on your map will have its own separate lease? And should we choose to cancel one, all the others will still be in effect?
That's correct.
So tonight, semantics, I know, but tonight when we bring this forward to give direction, are we doing so on each individual parcel, or you're looking for an omnibus to execute all of them collectively?
My understanding from Deputy Clerk Bennett is that these will all be itemized separately on the council agenda this evening.
Okay, perfect. That's really helpful. And I'm glad to see that Parks is modernizing their paper system. I stand by what I said earlier. I really don't see the value in us extending ourselves from a maintenance perspective for several of these properties. I think that we have tried repeatedly over this term to work collaboratively with Parks to make upgrades along the waterfront, to which they have been unresponsive or put up roadblocks to us. So I don't feel indebted to them at all in managing or upkeeping their parkland. And quite frankly, I will say I took my boys to Victoria Park yesterday, and not only were they surprised to find the tube broken, but the curly slide is also still blocked off. So, I mean, if Parks wants to assume the liability solely within that park, by all means, because right now it's a catastrophe. Someone is going to get hurt. And I know that someone, I'll be honest, I don't remember who, I think it might have been Peter, had mentioned, you know, sharing responsibility and liability for this park. If we walk away at this point, we have no liability in this, as far as I can tell. And if we execute it, then we are solely on the hook. I mean, joint and several liability be damned. It's going to be the municipality as the closest authority to a lawsuit on this. And frankly, I don't see value in executing a lease like this. So I am not in favor of the motion tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Alfred.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back and echo some of the comments that Councillor Allen made. Old Home Week 2000 was responsible for raising the money and doing the construction on the picnic structure and the wading pool. And I very much would like to see it stay as a wading pool. And I know I've said this before, splash pads are fine, but I'm sure there must be some technology so that we can satisfy the public health unit's concerns about, in fact, if I remember correctly, the standards are higher in that wading pool than they are for drinking water. So I would like it to stay.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor McGuire, maybe last word to you, and then I'll wrap it up.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. Yeah, I definitely agree with Councillor Alfred and Alan. And I think if there was a way that we could pump water in from the basin, have it go into that old creek that's dry now, you get both of those done. But unfortunately, I share Councillor Dwyer's concerns with this one, and I think we really need to take a good look at it before we approve this in principle and send it to council, because not only do we have the liability in Victoria Park, Parks Canada's got all kinds of parking lots in town at different sites that they maintain, the public's able to use, there's no charge for. No one's saying that we're getting rid of the parking lot. We're just saying it's time for Parks Canada to maintain their own land. The same thing with with Duck Island, with the amount of geese manure on that island last year. It's just not a pleasant place. So I don't see what we're doing hanging on to that. I'd like to know if we know how much it costs us to maintain Parcel A and Parcel D on an annual basis.
Okay, CEO Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll answer the last question first. I'm not, I don't have the figures in front of me for the cost of maintaining them, but we can certainly get it. I would characterize them as incremental. We cut a lot of grass, and so obviously there's a cost, but it would be incremental at best. In terms of the parking lot, we clear the snow. That's about the extent of our maintenance. So we can certainly quantify those costs. I would offer that there is potential to look at a revenue stream from the parking lot. It may be appropriate for monthly passes or some form of revenue generation. So we're working on the downtown parking bylaw. I think that would be the next frontier to look at this property. We haven't done that because of the uncertainty around the former water treatment plant development. But I would say that there is a revenue generating potential there. I would offer, in terms of some of the comments about Victoria Park, we just remind council that we are in the midst of a Parks and Recreation Master Plan that's going to look at where we should be focusing our efforts. We do have monies in the 2021 capital budget for parks improvements. So there will be a dialogue around the types of improvements that you want to see at Victoria Park. The pool that's in Victoria Park is a wading pool as opposed to a splash pad, and there are different criteria around the safety of the water. So that one's been problematic. But I think council will be looking at a few decisions around the amenities you want in that park, and then we can start building them. So I certainly understand the concerns about what's there now. We will attend to any that may be safety related. But I think we have a wonderful opportunity ahead of us to relook at the amenities at that park, at Victoria Park.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Brennan put his hand up. Yeah, I'll get back to you, Councillor.
Yeah, I did. I mean, everything is, Councillor Dwyer, Councillor McGuire, you're totally right. It's got to be better, right? It's got to be better. However, if by not signing the lease, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, if we don't sign the lease with them, then we lose operational control and the vision for the space, just like we did with the other part of Victoria Park where the campers were. So that means it's up to them and we have no say. Am I wrong?
Oh, sorry, CAO Morris can answer that.
Yeah, I think being a leasee, so to speak, gives us programming control and maintenance control. So yeah, without it, we would be relying on others to provide amenities to the citizens of Smiths Falls. So I think there's value in working with Parks Canada to determine what that vision looks like. I know Director Manhire has been working closely with them on the plans that they have for the section of Victoria Park that we no longer have under lease. And we want to integrate that with improvements on the leased portion if council approves it. One of the things we're going to do is provide a visual barricade around the fuel tanks. So there are several conversations going on right now in terms of how we integrate their improvements with our improvements. But you're quite right. Without a lease, we walk away and we rely on others to provide amenities that most people would consider to be municipal.
Okay, I'm going to want to wrap this up. I know Councillor McGuire and then Councillor Dwyer, and maybe we can. It's an important conversation. I'm not trying to cut it off. So as long as you keep putting your hands up, I'll keep it going. Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the idea that we have control over these properties is delusional after we've seen what happened with Victoria Park. It was a one-sided thing. We're going through this draft exercise now with them. They won't even come to council and talk to us. So that doesn't appeal to me. I'm personally not comfortable committing the residents of Smith Falls to this for 5 years without knowing what the full cost implication will be. And my last comment on this is that it was inferred that the closing of Victoria Park Campground is causing a restaurant to go bankrupt. And I think this kind of misinformation of the Horseshoe is dangerous. And I just want to make it very clear that there's no connection between any restaurant going out of business and the Victoria Park Campground not operating in the 2021 season.
Thank you. Councillor Dwyer.
Thanks. And I'm sorry, I don't want to belabor this, but CA Morris, you said something that I want to go back to. You said that we're in discussions with Parks Canada to establish buffering and screening around upgrades that they made in the park. Is that correct?
Through the chair, no, we're in discussions with Parks Canada to integrate the improvements we're going to make on our leased section. And the example I provided was a visual barrier around the fuel tanks, which are the town fuel tanks. And to make sure the walkway that they make and whatever integrates with our side of the park, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. That was the point that I wanted to clarify, was the ownership of the tanks. I don't disagree that the monetary output on our investment in this is nominal at best. I don't think we're going to find it's hugely cost prohibitive for us to maintenance this land. It's more to send a message to parks that we're not about to just assume all responsibility but have no control over what we do. The next time we come to a parks upgrade, like paving a walking path so that it's fully accessible, maybe they should be collaborative on that project instead of denying our request wherein we lose grant funding. I agree with Councillor McGuire. This is a very one-sided relationship. And I think that it warrants a further conversation with parks, which we have been asking for 2.5 years and have been met with an unresponsive reciprocating party. And I think in that respect, I would suggest that we defer these agreements until we can sit down and have meaningful engagement with Parks Canada. If they want to assume responsibility for the ownership of the lands until we can finalize the discussions about executing these lease agreements, by all means, cut the grass for a year. But I don't want to just rush into this because this is something that we have always done, and God forbid we contemplate doing something different. I think we need to take a stand, and I said that with Victoria Park, and I'll say it again now. I'm looking for a partner in this who's willing to come to the table, and I'm not seeing that based on what we've been presented once again.
Thank you, Councillor Dwyer. By my tally, there was a 5 around the table that were ready to proceed with the agreement, and there was 2 people, councillors, that were not ready to do that. Would you like this to move forward tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Yes. So the 5 of us would like to see it move ahead. There was some information that is being requested that it looks like it will be coming back related, but it didn't look like it was information that would stop the majority of council from moving ahead tonight, unless I've misread the room. That was my take. Okay, thank you. We're going to move along to 8.4, zoning amendment application on Percy Street. Mr. Grenke, I think you're going to walk us through this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm presenting for Council's consideration a zoning amendment application for a long vacant property at along the block of Percy Street between Lyra and Ross Street. So on March 11th, Planning Advisory Committee hosted a public meeting to consider a consent application to adjust the boundaries between the 2 lots that are commonly owned, as well as a zoning application to rezone the property from residential type 1, which is a low density residential zone, to residential type 5 with special exceptions for some of the setbacks. And the purpose of that would be to accommodate a 16-unit townhouse, bungalow style townhouse development with featuring 4 blocks. So in this case, the Planning Advisory Committee supported the application, and staff supported as well. So the official plan does establish intensification criteria for residential development, and in this case, we note that the proposed density of 28 units per net hectare is a little bit higher than that in the surrounding community. However, the proposed buildings would be designed as bungalow units and generally consistent in scale and height with the majority of the surrounding neighborhoods. There is an opportunity for larger rear yard setbacks at this location, which would further buffer the homes along Lyra Street. So the proposal here would have the effect of essentially filling in a vacant part of a well-established neighborhood, provide some diversity in housing type, and be appropriately suited on a collector road that's adjacent to a business area, as well as close to some institutional uses. So at this point, the zoning application, of course, is to consider the proposed land use. So some of the further details such as building design, landscaping, servicing, those would be accommodated through a site plan application, and that would, if the zoning is approved, that would be presented for council's consideration at a later date. The site has been subject to a holding zone for many years, and that's to accommodate the necessity to obtain servicing approvals. So staff are recommending, in consultation with the Public Works Department, we would be, the holding zone could be lifted upon through the site plan, or around the time of the site plan approval, once we've secured the servicing connections to the site. So with that in mind, staff recommend that that council approves the zoning amendment as presented, and that a bylaw be passed at the next available opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Granke. Councillor Alford, then Councillor Dwyer.
Yeah, I supported it at the Planning Advisory Committee, and I will support it at council. This is great infill by a reputable local builder on a lot. Well, it does intensify the number of units a bit. That is part of the goal of this council as well, to do some of that, and it is wonderful infill, and again, one of the goals of this council. So yeah, I'll be supporting the staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Carl, can you just clarify, I noted in the report that there didn't seem to be any commentary about traffic impact. Was there a traffic brief received as part of a complete application on this?
Go ahead.
A traffic brief was not requested as part of the complete application on this. The proposal wasn't identified as being problematic in terms of impact of traffic impact at that location.
Okay, I don't have any concerns with the increase in density. I think it's great infill per PPS, OP, la-di-da. I do have concerns about the functionality of townhouses on that street, particularly given that it's a throughfare to two elementary schools and the high school plus the mall. I mean, have we given some consideration to the number of driveways that are going to be located here, and their proximity to the Bell Avenue intersection in particular? It seems to be very busy, and with the number of particularly children in the area, I just have concerns with the management of traffic flow in and around this neighborhood. Is there, sorry, perhaps I'll frame that in a question, Mr. Chair. Is there another opportunity to analyze the traffic impact of the development on Percy Street?
Go ahead, Mr. Granke.
Yes, so the proposal would be, if approved as presented, will look very similar to the Kevlar development we looked at last year with shared driveways along Percy Street. If I may, I would ask if Director Dunlop, who's had an opportunity to review the functionality and operation of the proposal through the zoning perspective, if he has anything to add in terms of the function on Percy Street.
Director Dunlop, are you able to participate in this discussion with us?
Through the chair, in the view of Public Works, the built form that we're seeing in this proposal is somewhat consistent with the housing that is further to the east on Percy Street. When we look at roads like this, our interest is focusing on most certainly the capacity of the road. Percy Street, we don't view it as being close to its operational capacity. The sight lines in this general area are good. We believe that people accessing and egressing these driveways should be able to do so very safely. This does raise a question that should be reviewed perhaps with Planning Advisory Committee is what threshold of housing might a TIS be triggered, and Based on the built form, we didn't feel that that was an expense or an investigation that was needed this time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Allen?
Yeah, no, I support this. I'm in that area a fair bit, use that street a fair bit. And I don't have any problem with it, but the question I have was, will there be a sidewalk on both sides, Carl?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, that hasn't yet been confirmed. If the zoning is approved, then through the site plan process, certainly we would look at a driveway location through the site plan process, as well as sidewalks. That's been flagged as one area for consideration, but staff haven't determined for certain whether we would be recommending a sidewalk on that location.
I do agree with Councillor Dwyer's observation, but this is a very busy, children-friendly area. They go to Chimo or they go to the park, and there are a lot of families, young families in that area. So I would think that would be a worthwhile thing to have a sidewalk on both sides. I know we don't always do that. I know we're not doing it in some of our newer subdivisions, but that's just my thought.
But Councillor Allen, did you say you do support it as a?
I support the yes. In fact, I was impressed that they were one level, and I think they're going to fit nicely into that very nice neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brennan?
I support it as well. I'm on the planning committee and I agree with Councillor Alfred. In terms of the sidewalks, that can be dealt with at site plan. I would point out though, that would be the only sidewalk on that side of the street. So it would be a sidewalk to nowhere. There's no sidewalk going either direction after that. So, but that can be dealt with at site plan, but the principle of the development is excellent.
So, Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, thanks to our planning advisory committee. I read the minutes and it seems like it's well supported. My one recommendation or comment going towards site plan would be to have the same surface treatments on the front, wrap around to the sides on the corner ones that will be on Lear Street and Ross Street, just to give some consistency to the design. But other than that, I think it looks really great.
So I saw Mayor Panko.
Yeah, no, I support the staff recommendation as well. I think it's a great use of this piece of property. It's been sitting vacant for a long time. It's suitable infill, and I guess when it comes to traffic, I know obviously it is a high pedestrian area for traffic with schools, but I think from a vehicle standpoint, I suspect the traffic counts are far lower than we're seeing on Ferrara with a very similar development. But I look forward to the site plan, look forward to getting this moving ahead. And I also want to give, I guess, recognition to our plan advisory committee, Councillor Bennett and Alfred and everyone else involved, because I think for years, I think the volume of work by this group in the last couple of years probably eclipses the volume of work that have been done probably in the previous 10. So you guys have been busy and really appreciate your guidance and bringing this stuff forward to council.
So we have consensus. I'm also in agreement of this going forward to council tonight. So that brings us, thank you, Mr. Granke, I appreciate that. That brings us to the end of our meeting, and I'll be seeking a motion to adjourn. Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that the meeting adjourn at 6:15 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. All in favor? And that's carried. We'll take a short
Welcome back, everyone, to this regular meeting of Smithville Town Council for Monday, April 6th. We have all members of council present this evening. I've got a couple of announcements and proclamations. First one I want to speak to is Be a Donor Month. And for those who tuned into Committee of the Whole, they saw the benefits and the stories of what it means to be a donor. And we also, of course, in our community, all of us, and most of us will probably know someone who has been a recipient of an organ donation, and we recognize the difference that it's made in their life, and then the ability they have to carry on with that passion and purpose, and to help inform and educate the rest of us on the merits of being a donor. And of course, there are people listening to this evening who I'm speaking to directly. So I want to make a proclamation on Be a Donor Month. So whereas Be a Donor Month supports organ and tissue donor registration, and whereas almost 1,600 people in Ontario are on the wait list, and every 3 days someone dies waiting for a life-saving organ transplant, and whereas in 2020, 314 deceased organ donors gave the gift of life, 1,135 organ transplants were performed in Ontario, and 1,709 tissue donors enhanced the lives of thousands. Whereas 90% of Ontarians support organ and tissue donation, yet only 1 in 3, about 35% of eligible Ontarians have registered their consent to donate. Whereas families almost always consent to donation when there is evidence a loved one registered their decision to donate, but in the absence of a registered donation decision, families consent only half the time. And whereas everyone is a potential organ and tissue donor, regardless of age, medical condition, or sexual orientation, one organ donor can save up to 8 lives and enhance the lives of up to 75 more through the gift of tissue. Now, therefore, I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smiths Falls, do hereby proclaim the month of April as Be a Donor Month, and encourage all citizens to learn more about the organ and tissue donation and transplantation, and consider pledging their support to Be a Donor Month by registering as a donor at beadonor.ca. Thank you. Also, proclamation regarding World Autism Awareness Month, April 2021. Whereas autism spectrum disorder, in brackets ASD, is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects more than 100,000 Ontarians. And whereas autism spectrum disorder affects a person's social relationships, communication, interests, and behaviors. Whereas early intervention for young children on the autism spectrum may help them develop communication, social, and other skills, resulting in more meaningful participation in the communities. Whereas children, youth, and adults on the autism spectrum and their families can benefit from community supports and inclusive practices. And with this assistance, an increasing number of individuals on the autism spectrum are able to live and work independently. Whereas Autism Ontario is dedicated to increasing public awareness about autism and the day-to-day issues faced by individuals with autism, their families, and the professionals with whom they interact. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smiths Falls, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2021 is Autism Awareness Month in the Town of Smiths Falls, dated today. And on a personal note, I've got a beautiful, wonderful little granddaughter who has autism. And we recognize the challenges that this brings to her and her family. She'll be going to school this fall. We know that it's vital that she gets the supports that she needs. And these people are incredibly enabled in ways that may be different than us. And we need to ensure as a society, we give them every chance possible to live their life to the fullest. Thank you. I'll ask for disclosure of monetary interest. Hearing none. Delegations, we have none. We have no adoption of minutes. It's been a while since we've had reports. We've got a pretty heavy agenda this evening, but I will go around the room to see who has some reports. Councillor Allen, you had your hand up first.
For to next meeting, that's fine.
Anybody else? You want to defer till, oh, Councillor McGuire, sorry.
Just a quick one, Your Worship. We had a meeting of the Police Services Board on March 25th. The chief distributed the annual report, which our deputy clerk sent to council. And I'm wondering if there's any interest in council in having the chief come and present it to us at a committee of the whole. Seeing nodding heads.
You got lots of nodding heads. Okay. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Your Worship. But just briefly, the community has heard me talk about the special community services of Lanark County housing summits. There's one has taken place March 24th. The next one is April the 14th, and the final one is April 28th. The next one is the first one was a lot of background information. For example, almost $15 million is spent in Lanark County by the county on behalf of the housing, and that money comes from the feds, the province, and local municipalities, and the renters who live in those housings. So there's a lot of background information in the first one. The minutes are online at the county. People should read it. The next one will be interesting on April the 14th, because staff will be coming forward with a report on some draft recommendations for the committee to consider on what we can do to mitigate the impacts of the housing crisis at Lanark County and Smith Falls. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? I've got a number myself, but I'll focus on a few. On March 23rd, we had a regular meeting of the board of directors of the Perth and Smith Falls District Hospital, and of course, at that time, we were seeing a real spike in COVID cases within the Lanark East area, Lanark West. And the strain on the hospital was probably greater than we've experienced throughout most of the pandemic. The hospital also received some good news during that recently about additional funding coming from the province related to COVID expenses. For the most part, procedures have been ramping up and have been back to close to normal. So I think we owe our hospital a great debt of gratitude for the effort they've made through these challenging times. Also, just want to, I don't often bring a report from RVCA, but we had our meeting on March 25th. And the RVCA, through a grant from the Federal Natural Disaster Mitigation Program, so that grant has not been confirmed, but I think it should be confirmed shortly, which will pay half the cost of the $361,000 investment in 18 new weather stations. So the weather stations that are there now are fairly limited in the technology that they bring. They relied on the 3G network. So the new ones, which will be provide data on precipitation rate, air temperature, solar radiation, sunshine hours, relative humidity, wet bulb temperature, absolute humidity, air density, wind speed and direction, wind chill, and soil moisture. Will provide that data hourly, 24 hours a day, every day of the week, every day of the month, every day of the year, feedback into a program. So it will provide great data for the RVCA, sometimes in anticipation of different weather systems that may cause some challenges, as well, of course, in climate mitigation. And this data can be shared with Environment Canada as well, which will have a keen interest in what's happening local. So these 18 units will be put in different areas throughout the watershed area. So very positive news coming from the RVCA. And just one final one, and Councillor Alford McKenna and I attended a food security advocacy group meeting on March 26th. And what I can say about that is there is an incredible interest and effort locally to support the food security needs of our community. And it was great to see a variety of partners involved in a very structured format. It was moderated by Jane Torrance, former deputy mayor for Mississippi Mills, a good friend. So I think there's some really encouraging, developments that will come out of this. There is such a commitment and effort from so many parties recognizing this is one of the most profound issues or most challenging times we are facing. And I think this incredible effort will lead to some really positive results as we move forward. And it's great to have Councillor McKenna and Alford helping lead the charge on this. And that's it for my reports. We have a lot of bylaws this evening, so I'll ask you to bear with us. And I'm going to start with Councillor McKenna, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford. A bylaw to adopt the Smith Falls Municipal Cultural Plan 2021 to 2025 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to adopt the Smiths Falls Municipal Cultural Plan 2021 to 2025 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? That's carried. Discussion, Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, yes, your worship. Of course, municipalities are more than streets and sewers. They're much more than that. They're about the vibrancy and vitality of the community of Smiths Falls. So the cultural plan actually highlights some of the areas, very broad spectrum of culture, music, tourism, and it wraps it up in a report with measurable, with a plan going forward over the next 4 years that we believe can be measured. And they highlight the strength of working with our partners in our community. So to make our community rich and vibrant, this cultural plan will give us a roadmap towards being successful in that endeavor.
Thank you. Any further comments? May I have the third reading, please?
Of course, moved by myself and second by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to adopt the Smiths Falls Municipal Cultural Plan 2021 to 2025 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10225-2021.
Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to adopt the Smiths Falls Municipal Cultural Plan 2021 to 2025 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10225-2000. And before I move on to Councillor Dwyer, if you are planning to stay to the end tonight, I think you'll enjoy the opportunity to find out the history of who Old Sly was. Councillor Brennan posed that question a few weeks ago. I think we're going to hear the answer tonight, so make sure you stay tuned for that captivating moment. And Councillor Dwyer, I think you've got the next bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Pankow. I do. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 10209-2021, being a bylaw to adopt estimates of the sums required for municipal purposes for the year 2021 to include the 2021 PSAB basis budget, be received and read a first time and taken and read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dwyer, second by Councillor McGuire. The bylaw to amend bylaw 10209-2021, being a bylaw to adopt estimates of the sums required for municipal purposes for the year 2021 to include the 2021 PSAB basis budget, be received, read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor Dwyer.
Okay, so I know I'm not going to do as good a job as Janet on this one, but I think I got this straight. So PSAB is the Public Sector Accounting Board. And a couple of years ago, PSAB made some changes wherein non-tangible capital assets need to be accounted for their depreciation and amortization of monetary value over their useful life. So for example, if you have a road and you pave it this year, and we know that we're going to need to replace it in 30 years, the value of that asset goes down until it needs to be replaced. So every year, we prepare our budget in such a way that we don't account for that as part of the depreciation or declining. Nope, I had it, I'm gone. The assets decline, but we don't include that in our actual general ledger budget. We include it as a separate compendium document, which is required by PSAB. And that's what we're doing tonight.
If I close my eyes, I thought it would be Treasurer Cozio speaking.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Peck. You're too kind.
I have to assume, is a further comment on this, Councillor Brennan?
Oh, Jay, be nice.
If it would have been me, I would have said, this is red tape from the provincial government we have to do. Bang.
Oh.
That's the short version. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah.
Okay, Nikki, maybe the third reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 10209-2021, being a bylaw to adopt estimates for the sums required for municipal purposes for the year 2021 to include the 2021 PSAB basis budget, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10226-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dwyer, second by Councillor McGuire. The bylaw to amend bylaw 10209-2021 being a bylaw to adopt estimates of the sums required for municipal purposes for the year 2021 to include the 2021 PSAB basis budget be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10226-2021. All in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Alford, you have item 7.3.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment, for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McKenna, the bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment, for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Discussion, Councillor Alford?
Yes, Your Worship, this, we discussed this at COW, and this bylaw is particularly for parcels A and B. Parcel A is Duck Island, where the powwow would be held. And parcel B is where the Harvard, Plain, and Evergreen Avenue are. The rental on these two leases is $500 per year.
Thank you. Any further discussion? May have, Councillor McGuire.
Just like to ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, recorded vote has been requested. May I have the third reading, please?
Yes, Your Worship, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment, for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10227-2021.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment, for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency be now read a third time, finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10227-2021. Recorded vote has been requested. I'll turn it over to Deputy Clerk Bennett.
With respect to bylaw 10227-2021, please state yay or nay. Councillor Alford?
Yay.
Councillor Allen?
Yay.
Councillor Brennan?
Yay.
Councillor Dwyer?
Nay.
Councillor McGuire?
Nay.
Councillor McKenna?
Yay.
And Mayor Panko.
Yay.
This motion is carried.
Thank you. On to our next bylaw with Councillor Brendan, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment, for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment, for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. The discussion, Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, this was discussed. It's companion to the previous bylaw that we just had. And this is another piece of land that we're leasing from Parks Canada. This piece in the report is parcel D, which is the parking lot, I believe, just behind the water tower. And the cost of this is $100 a year. And I think that this is an important piece for us to retain, given the proximity to the downtown, and keep control of what develops there. So I support it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor McGuire?
Thanks. I'd also like to say that we plowed this lot, so that expense is on there too, and I'd like to ask for a recorded vote.
Okay. Councillor Dwyer, do you have something else to add as well?
No, just a request for a recorded vote.
Okay, thank you. It is moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in Writ of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10228-2021. A recorded vote has been requested and Deputy Clerk Bennett will take over from here.
With respect to bylaw 10228-2021, please state yay or nay. Councillor Alford? Sorry, can you turn your mic on?
Yay.
Thank you. Councillor Allen?
Yay.
Councillor Brennan?
Yay.
Councillor Dwyer?
Nay.
Councillor McGuire?
Nay.
Councillor McKenna?
Yay.
And Mayor Panko?
Yay.
This motion is carried.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna, you're up next.
Yes, this is a bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency bylaw 10229-2021. It's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford.
Thank you. And for those watching, you haven't got a bad case of deja vu. There were a number of sort of duplicate bylaws here regarding different parcels of land. This is moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to authorize the execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and the Right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency, be received read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor McKenna.
Yes, similar to my two previous bylaws by my colleagues. These are relating to parcels E and F. One is a water lot, so just off of the park, and the other is on the Centennial Park side of the land along the Centennial Park as well. So it's on both sides of our waterfront.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Dwyer?
I'll call a recorded vote, please.
Your turn, okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Alford, the bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and the Right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10229-2021. Recorded vote has been requested, and Deputy Clerk Bennett will take over from here.
With respect to bylaw 10229-2021, please state yay or nay. Councillor Alford?
Yay.
Councillor Allen? Councillor Allen?
Sorry, I thought you heard me.
No, that's okay, sorry. Councillor Brennan?
Yay.
Councillor Dwyer?
Nay.
Councillor McGuire?
Nay.
Yay.
Councillor McKenna?
Yay.
And Mayor Panko? This motion is carried.
Thank you. We have one more of these. Back to Councillor McKenna, please.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Canada, represented by the Minister of the Environment for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Allen, the bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and the Right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency, be received read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor McKenna.
Yeah, just to clarify my previous comments, the previous bylaw was for lot E. This is for actually lot F, which is the Centennial Park area along the water.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Dwyer.
I'll ask for a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Councillor McGuire, anything further from you? He's good with that. Okay. I'll read the question. It is moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a license agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and the Right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Environment for the purposes of the Parks Canada Agency, being now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10230-2021. A recorded vote has been requested.
With respect to bylaw 10230, please state yay or nay. Councillor Alfred,
Yay.
Councillor Allen,
Yay.
Councillor Brennan,
Yay.
Councillor Dwyer,
Nay.
Councillor McGuire,
Nay.
Councillor McKenna,
Yay.
Mayor Panko.
Yay.
This motion is carried.
Thank you. And our final bylaw is with Councillor Allen, please.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 608094 respecting 2 vacant properties on the southwest side of Percy Street between Lyra Street and Ross Street be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6080-94 respecting 2 vacant properties on the southwest side of Percy Street between Lyra Street and Ross Street be received, read a first time, and taken as read a second time. All in favor? That's carried. Discussion. Councillor Allen?
Yeah. Vacant for a number of years on the side of Percy Street between Lyra and Ross, and they were residential type 1, and we're changing them to residential type 5 to allow Keith Kerfoot development or to allow, build townhouses, a development of 16 units, which we think will be very appropriate for that neighborhood.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Can we have a third reading, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 608094 respecting 2 vacant properties on the southwest side of Percy Street between Lyra Street and Ross Street be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10231-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that a bylaw to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 6080-94 respecting 2 vacant properties on the southwest side of Percy Street between Lyra Street and Ross Street be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10231-2021. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. On to our last few motions. Councillor McGuire, you are up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Allen, the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls award Schedule B, Item 5 of contract number PW-M-36-2021-24-E2 to Cargill Salt Road Division, a division of one with 2 possible 1-year extensions, and further that Council accept Cargill's low bid price of $95.81 a ton plus HST for the coming 2021-2022 season.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor McGuire.
So this is an annual piece of housekeeping to keep our roads clear. 2 interesting things about this one. One is that the price of salt is stabilized, so that's great. It's come down, and we've been able to reduce our salt consumption in town by about 25% over the last few years. So a big thank you to Director Dunlop and his team for bringing this to us and working with Lanark County so we can get a great value for our residents.
Thank you. Any further comments? Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Allen. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls award Schedule B, Item 5 of contract number PW-M-36-2021-24-E2 to Cargill Salt Road Safety, a division of Cargill Limited for the 3-year term commencing July 1st, 2021, 2 possible 1-year extensions. And further, the council accepts Cargill's low bid price of $95.81 a ton plus HST for the coming 2021-22 season. All in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Alford, you're up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls approve the Drinking Water System Financial Plan, Report 164-301, inclusive of the rate study for the period 2021 to 2030, as prepared by Hempson Consulting Limited, And that staff be authorized to submit the above noted plan to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks in accordance with the Safe Drinking Act as described by Ontario Regulation 453/07, Section 316. And further, that the water financial plan be made available upon request to the public and provide notice of availability to those served by the system.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Alford?
Yes, Your Worship, this report is required by the province for the town's water license and provides, we are to provide a financial plan for sustainable operations for both the water and wastewater systems over the next 10 years. It will be important, as we discussed when we were talking about this, to stay as close to the plan as possible so that we can fund future work.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McKenna. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls approve a drinking water system financial plan in brackets number 164-301, inclusive of the rate study for the period 2021 to 2030, as prepared by Hempson Consulting Limited in brackets Hempson, and that staff be authorized to submit the above plan to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing in brackets MMAH, and the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks in brackets MECP in accordance with the Safe Drinking Act as prescribed in OREG 453-07, Section 3 in brackets 1(6), and further that the water financial plan be made available upon request to the public and provide notice availability to those served by the system. All in favor? That is carried. And Councillor Allen, you have the second last motion.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire, that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls award contract 21 PW010 for the Abbott and Lombard intersection to Ottawa D Squared, and that Council authorized the Mayor and Clerk to execute the final contract agreement with Ottawa D Squared for the low bid price of $691,783 plus HST.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Allen?
Yes, this is a really important corner, and Ottawa D Squared is going to be resurfacing the Cornelia Street West, and it's going to include a fully accessible monolithic concrete sidewalk, modifications to the laning and the geometrics, in addition to a southbound right turn lane on Abbott, and upgrades to the traffic signals. So it will make that corner much better. Look forward to that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. It is moved by Councillor Allen, second by Councillor McGuire. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls award contract number 21-PW-010 for the Abbott and Lombard intersection to Ottawa D Squared. And the council authorized the mayor and clerk to execute the final contract agreement with Ottawa D Squared with a low bid price of $691,783 plus HST. All in favor? That's carried. And our final motion is with Councillor Brennan, please.
Okay, I'll read it very slowly. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls award contract number 21 PW007 for Cornelia Street West resurfacing to Ottawa D Squared, and that council authorized the mayor and clerk to execute a final contract agreement with Ottawa D Squared for the low bid price of $352,410 plus HST.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Brennan?
Yep, this is another important street project that we're doing. It's Cornelia Street between William and Elmsley, and like the last one, this comes in under budget to the tune of $64,000. So great job there. We saved some money and get an important street in front of our hospital done.
Thank you. And both projects were last resurfaced over 30 years ago, so it's great to get this completed. Thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor McKenna, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls award contract number 21-PW-007 for the Cornelia Street West resurfacing to Ottawa D Squared, and the council authorized the mayor and clerk to execute the final contract agreement with Ottawa D Squared for the low bid price of $352,410 plus HST. All in favor? That's carried. Inquiries and announcements. The moment we've all been waiting for. Councillor McKenna, I'll let you go first.
Just wanted to recognize a local athlete, Bailey Anderson, for her, I think she's #2 ranked in the country for her particular swim meet. And full disclosure, she happens to be my great niece. So congratulations to Bailey.
Well done, Bailey. We look forward to following your progress. Councillor Brennan, I know you're going to solve a mystery, and my feedback was going to be the beer can, but
I didn't do my homework last time, and I had a question for which I had no answer, and I believe my colleague, Councillor Alfred, was hot on the spot there, looking it up and let me know, and so I'd like her to answer the question of who Old Sly is, because I don't know.
Well, I did have to go to a book because I know it's a popular product of one of our local microbreweries, 4 Degrees. But in addition to that, I found in a book published in 1982, the first settler on the site was William Sly. He arrived with his family in 1798 and by 1824 had erected a substantial barn and house where the defensible Lochmaster's house was later constructed. By the 1840s, the area surrounding Loch site was mostly cleared of farmland, and within a decade or two, mills were erected by a local that is more familiar to us, which is Joshua Bates.
we have to assume that Mr. Sly lived to be a ripe old age.
Well, if he was there in 1798, I don't even know how old that is.
You got the name Old Sly, so I guess it. Anyway, I digress. Councillor McKenna, so thank you, Councillor Brown, for posing that question, and Councillor Alford for doing research to get the answer. And Councillor McKenna, I think you have a trivia question for the rest of us tonight.
Just to ask you that just over 50 years ago, Smiths Falls developed one of the largest construction project of its time to date. And what was that just over 50 years ago?
Councillor Brannan.
That would be the Cornelia Street underpass.
Very good, Councillor Brennan. And do you know the dollar amount?
No.
Neither do I. But it's just 52 years ago that was opened, and what an improvement. Yeah.
Major undertaking.
It used to take a long time to get to Gibson's until they improved that.
All right. Okay, before we ask for the motion for adjournment, I just want to, I guess, recognize the efforts of our health unit and the work that they are doing to protect us during these challenging times. Again, we moved into the gray lockdown zone on the weekend, and none of us like this. This is a real challenging time, and I know we're exhausted with all of these measures, but we also know that our best hope to get through this and get to sunnier and brighter days ahead is to follow the direction of our medical officer of health, to do everything we need to do to keep our community safe. We know we had a significant outbreak going on about close to a month ago, and the efforts of everybody has helped to flatten that curve locally. We know provincially the numbers are still spiking elsewhere, and the variants of concern are a very strong, legitimate concern that we all need to make sure we do all we can to ensure we don't get infected and ensure we do not infect others. So I think the community has done a great job so far. We have to bear down once again, do the responsible thing. We will get through this. We know there are better days ahead. At that, I'll ask for any further comments before I ask for the motion for adjournment. Councillor Allen, you have the adjournment.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire that this council adjourn its proceedings at 7:03 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor McGuire. This council adjourns proceeding at 7:03 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? Thank you. Good night, everyone.